And we're live.
All right, so welcome everyone. To this Sustainability Commission. I'm Devin Mann and I'm chair of the commission. And before we get started, Ian's gonna do a little housekeeping statement.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us in this hybrid meeting format. Just a quick housekeeping note before we begin this evening's meeting. For members of the public who are joining the meeting via computer, device, or phone, please be advised that your microphone, webcam, and phone are automatically muted when you enter the meeting as an attendee. If you wish to participate during the public comment portion of the meeting and haven't already done so, please raise your virtual hand now to join the speakers queue in one of two ways. For those viewing the meeting on a computer, laptop, or other device, click once on the blue hand icon. For those listening to the meeting on a phone, press *9. We will lower hands as speakers are called upon. When the public comment begins, we will announce your name and unmute your microphone. You will have 2 minutes to speak, after which your microphone will again be muted. Regarding the chat and Q&A functionality of Zoom, please note that attendees will not be able to use those features. Lastly, in accordance with the passage of HB 4212, this meeting is being recorded. Recordings will be posted to the Sustainability Commission websites. As always, feel free to contact the Sustainability Commission if there is testimony you were not able to provide or wish to get it to us in a different format. And with that, I turn the meeting over to Chair Mann.
Thank you, Steph. Okay. First, we're going to have one of our new commission members, John Fisher, is going to give the land acknowledgement.
So our land acknowledgement is maybe a little different. If you've never listened to Indian Time, their name, not mine, on KRBM on Thursdays, it's an interesting program. And I have 2 books that I left on the kitchen table that I was going to share with you. But in all seriousness, if you haven't read the books, The History of the Indigenous Peoples in Oregon, it puts a lot of perspective into how we got where we are now. That's a great book. And if you want to read it, email me and I will bring it to you because I left it on the kitchen table.
Bring it next time.
Well, I will, but they're borrowed for 2 months.
Okay.
So if you want it, email me and I will bring it to you to make myself stop forgetting things.
Great, thank you, John. So we have one action item, which is to review and approve tonight's agenda and the June and September meeting minutes. I move to approve those 2 agendas and meeting minutes. Oh, do you have a?
I had one question about one of the minutes. Hang on. Oh gosh, it's not important. Never mind.
Are you sure?
Yeah, it was related to, there was just a note in one of them, and I thought I was gonna have it all called up by then, and I didn't. About whether setting our agendas and sticking to council topics, and the way it was worded in the minutes, it said something about the last mayor meeting with staff. They had expressed that there was concern or something that we may be going outside, and just the way it was worded just sounded like, oh really? I didn't realize that was an issue. Okay,
I didn't notice that wording.
okay, it's probably not. I was just gonna ask a question if there was something I had missed in the discussion, because I didn't remember when you talked about it in the meeting having that same flavor, so I don't think it's a big deal.
Laura?
Yeah, it's right there, it is a little, but I had volunteered for November land acknowledgement, and it's not in the notes, so that could get added in. It's in the goals, roles, and guardrails part, noting that. Oh, it's not there.
Is that what you're talking about,
I
Jan?
think that's.
In addition, she explained that at the last mayor meeting, it was noted that the commission might be taking on a lot of additional work that didn't necessarily align. Yes, that's the sentence. And see what I'm saying? It just sounds like somebody had expressed an issue or a concern, and so I wanted to know if there was something more we hadn't heard about that somehow was reflected here and not in the discussion community. I know, I remember you saying it was like kind of in the past history of. this
Right, it wasn't
committee.
at the last meeting,
Okay,
we didn't really talk.
so
we
maybe
had-
that just needs that wording.
It was like in the past, yeah,
Yeah.
like when you were there,
Yeah.
like when we talked about it
And
last year.
that was the reference before then.
Correct.
So I think maybe that wording just needs to be tweaked a little bit.
So that just explain that in the past,
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that would be enough.
right.
so that change.
In the past, the commission might have or something.
Yeah. Might have taken on. I don't think.
Maybe take out a lot of,
Yeah.
that we just done.
Or no,
Yeah.
Especially since we're talking about the far path.
Correct. Yeah. That, I like that better too, yeah, thank you. Lexi?
Yeah, first, I think that was. That helped guide our conversation in our last meeting to make sure we had a productive, useful work plan. I'll also note there's some grammar stuff going on at the end, maybe it's the M issue.
No,
Advice on from the them. So, Ian, I'll let you handle that. Let's see.
Do I have permission to change? Not
yes,
your comment?
yes,
Okay, we can move on.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Are there other-
all right, should
and
we?
with that, I move approval of the minutes.
Section. Oh, yes.
Please.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, great, thank you. Okay, public comment.
We have two, so I'm gonna start on mine, and then Mr. Baker, I'll call you next. So Patty, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. I really am glad to see you all. My name is Patty Hine. I use she, her pronouns. I have been living in Eugene for some 35 years, and I'm here this evening in your good company to bring up a subject that has to do with the accelerated MUPTI proposal that's going to be considered next Wednesday at a work session of the City Council at 12 o'clock on the 23rd. Learning a little bit about this, it's a 5-year pilot, you probably are aware, that streamlines the permitting process so that we can get more people into housing ostensibly, and that's a good idea, into smaller housing, which is also very good because that reduces emissions, and near transit lines, another very good sustainability goal for such a project. However, it does make me have pause that we will maybe reducing the sustainability aspects of it. We don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. We don't want to reduce any of the standards that we have really worked hard to enact here. And we have gotten very close to having more electrified buildings that we subsidize, certainly with our own city tax dollars. People want to tax what they want to give tax exemptions to things that they support. And I would tell you that our community really strongly supports strong climate action. And we ask that you amend this proposal to include a statement that does not allow gas appliances and only allows electrical appliances. That would get us farther down the road, and really strongly urge the Sustainability Commission to support us in this effort. It's come up pretty quickly. The work session is next Wednesday. We've been sending letters to the City Council and speaking with councilors and the mayor, very concerned about such pilot projects that may not have very good oversight. Very often happens. So thank you very much for allowing me to speak this evening. I would like to hear what you think about this. A multi-unit property tax exemption can be very good, but we have to be very careful, and pilot programs are immediately under suspicion for getting things done quickly, but not in the right way. So thank you.
I believe Mr. Baker, you're next.
You want me to go up front? Is that there? Let me go up front. Fine, you can move where you want.
Yep,
And where's the microphone?
just talk. Okay, it's correct. Just speak up.
Okay, all right. My name is Stephen Baker. I've been on the planning commission for 10 years. I've been on historic review board for about half that time. I've lived in Eugene since 1973. I currently serve on the multiple use property tax exemption review panel. And I have been on that panel on and off for a number of years, depending on where the projects are located. I also previously worked for the Oregon Department of Energy, 15 years. I'm going to hit a few points. I printed a handout for you. I hope you read it. I don't have high expectations, but I hope you do read it. Buildings account for 40% of the world energy use. You all know that. Eugene's multiple user property tax exemption program provides a 10-year waiver of property taxes on new multifamily buildings in certain geographic areas, downtown and riverfront. The typical incentive varies from about $3 million for the project going into 1059 Willamette across from the bus station to about 15 million for one of the riverfront properties. Most multi-buildings are being constructed with gas ranges and gas water heating in apartments and probably also gas space heating. It just seems to me that the Sustainability Commission should at least consider commenting on that. I sent an email to a member of the Sustainability Commission a month ago because last week we had our annual meeting where we could change rules of the multi program. No one from the Sustainability, I mean, maybe I had a bad email, but no one showed up. And the rules, they didn't even get to discuss the rules that I'm talking about here, the rule changes, even though they were theoretically on the agenda. Multi projects have a green building requirement to exceed the Oregon Energy Code by 10%. In the 1990s, the state of Oregon had the best residential energy code in the US and also probably one of the best commercial energy codes, which commercial energy code is what multifamily housing falls under. Now Oregon has by far the worst commercial energy code on the West Coast. And I have detailed information below. Washington code, the same building in Washington would be required to have 70% less energy use. In Seattle, because in Washington, they allow jurisdictions to make more stringent codes. The same building would have to use 60% of the energy use of the same building of a building that was built here.
You're 2 minutes.
What?
You're 2 minutes.
Okay. Just one last point. Many energy commissions and RE panels set up by the city of Eugene act like silos. This is unproductive and making progress on long-term goals through collaboration, but it suits many within and out of government. A box can be checked. Thank you.
All right, thank you to the people who presented public comment. We have a presentation. Or do
We
we-
have any commissioner response?
Oh, do we have commissioner response? I'm sorry. I wasn't looking, Laura.
Listen, I didn't get any email from you about the meeting, did you, who did you send it to? No, they did anyone else.
Oh, I don't want to do that in case it was bad, I didn't get it out.
Well, just, it would be good to know,
Yes.
like, if we're not, if it's going to the website one, usually we all get those, but are we still?
No, I had
We should.
I had a personal information, email address given to me from a former staff member of the city.
So it was,
Okay.
because it should be a way for you to email all of us, and in the past we've gotten it.
Yeah, I was reluctant to do that because even by coming here and testifying, there will be members of the multi panel that will be angry. The multi panel meetings are not publicly listed on the calendar. The meetings are closed to the public, even though we don't actually cover any proprietary information anymore. And meetings are not recorded. There's no way to see, for the public to see or anyone to see what the discussion or the deliberation and decisions that were made by the multi. So
Thank you for coming. Yeah.
I wanted to thank both of these folks for coming to the meeting tonight and talking to us about this. I just heard of this issue in the last few days from members of the public, and I agree with the point that you made toward the end of your comment that the programs of the city often work somewhat in silos, and I know that's an ongoing issue all the time, but it does seem to me that we should use the tools that we have, like MUFTI, to leverage accomplishing the goals that we're trying to accomplish through the CAP and, other parts of the city, and we're missing a big opportunity to do that. I don't know if it doesn't seem like there's a time or a mechanism for us to get a comment to council by the time they're considering this, and I don't know what the timeline is, if that's a work session, if there's more consideration time or whatever. I think some members of the commission might be interested in just a situation where we might be interested in sending a letter, but we would need some time to look into it and talk about it and develop that if we were gonna do that. So I would appreciate any information from the staff about what might be a way for us to try to address this.
So, and I may defer to Councilor Sample if she responds as well. I think any member of council, and that's fine, any member of the commission is welcome to send council emails directly. So you can communicate that way. I think if we were to do a letter as a commission, we probably couldn't get that out in time for this. In terms of the timeline for MUFTI, I know it's an ongoing conversation. They had a work session a couple weeks ago. There's another one here. I know there's been a lot of public comments over the last 2 public comment sessions of council. And so I don't know where it's going for this, but I think they're trying to figure out the path forward and figure out how to think about the public benefits criteria piece of the accelerated MUFTI program. And I'm not sure if there's going to be a decision in this upcoming meeting.
Yeah, we don't know, we don't know either. Yeah, MUFTI is ongoing, and this is a core project for the core. Seems pretty straightforward, which I think it is, but bringing in the public benefits, some people want certain ones to go away or not be as strong, and others want more added. If we get bogged down in that, then we're not gonna take any action real quickly, I would guess. If we don't, if we are willing to go forward with this as a trial program, then that could be passed in the next few weeks. The sooner we pass it, the sooner we can see if that will work. The big MUFTI hasn't really been helping very much. So, the smaller MUFTI, we don't know until we try it. But getting stuff right in the core is important for our climate friendly rules from the state. So that's something to consider also. But yeah, MUFTI is ongoing. But back to the very first point is, yes, as a commission, we need to all read it and then just, a month later discuss it to say if we want to send it, sign it. But every single one of you can come speak or email us as yourself, not speaking for the commission, but making it quite clear you are on the commission. So you get the weight of being a commissioner without us needing the time to get that together. So how?
Thank you. Alexi?
I think it's an important topic. I'll be doing some research. Assuming it makes sense, I'd be happy to put a brief recommendation letter together with the question you, Ian, or Devin, with the best time frame. Assume on the assumption that we're gonna get bogged down a little bit this next week. One never knows, but would it
It's a
reasonable?
possibility, let's not assume.
Yes, it's a possibility. Well, right, but given that it's not feasible to put a full commission output letter type thing to council before next week. We have to work on the assumption that there's a bit more time for review of that. Would a reasonable timeline be draft by next meeting for approval or modification in a month?
I think so for review. My guess is that would be something that would take from the review of the commission to do that.
I'll research and draft and circulate.
Yeah, I was just gonna say in the past, we write it ahead of time and then share it with us so people can be ready that way. It
Yeah.
can Be approved at the next meeting.
Right.
the next meeting.
Right, be ready a week before, so we can put it in the packet for review and vote.
Thanks.
That's really important that we all get to see it. Before you get too in-depth pro or con, since we're gonna have a meeting really soon, I would, you might wanna see where we're going with
Right.
it. Done deal, are we going for more trees, are we going for less gas, what are we doing? Just a great idea.
Thank you.
Great. Does anyone else have any more comments about public comment? Okay, great. So, next on the agenda, we are going to have a presentation, about changes and improvements for future protected bikeways.
As Ian Russell with the technology, my name is Reed Dunbar and I'm a transportation planner with Public Works Engineering. And I work primarily on walking and biking projects in the city of Eugene.
I'm Willow Hamilton. I'm the community engagement coordinator for transportation planning at the city. So I work on all the projects from a community engagement perspective with transportation.
As we were talking with Danielle about topics that we might want to bring to you folks, it occurred to us that transportation has a pretty big impact on our climate. And as we think of ways for folks to use more efficient modes of transportation and to better utilize the efficiency of those modes, we need to have appropriate places for people to use those types of devices. So I'm talking about walking, biking, micro mobility devices, which we consider things like bike share, electric scooters, we're starting to call them e-things, like one wheels or like whatever people can manage to ride is basically part of micro mobility. And we think that that's a pretty good option. A people-sized device for a single person is a pretty efficient use of space. And if they can do that using human power, then all the better. And so tonight we're going to talk a little bit about how we're providing space for folks to choose those micromobility options, and specifically about protected bike lanes. So before we talk about protected bike lanes, I'd like to talk about why protected bike lanes and what is an all ages and abilities bikeway or facility. AAA bikeway is a place where all people, regardless of ability, feel safe and comfortable riding a bicycle or an e-thing. They usually feel separation, or they usually feature separation between people riding bikes and people driving cars. And so it feels like a separate space, and that increases the sense of comfort and safety. And just so you know, they're not all on-street facilities. A shared use path like the Riverbank Path is also a AAA facility. Because when you talk to most people, they say, oh, when I'm riding with the kids, I like to go along the shared use path with the Riverbank Path. And so what we try to do in an all ages and abilities bikeway is replicate the sensation of a separated shared use path, but do that in an on-street environment. And don't memorize this chart, but there's a lot of different ways that we can provide all ages and abilities. We can tweak the environment for travelers on local streets, on arterial streets, on collector streets, on our shared use path, so that can be more comfortable. And there's a lot of guidance out there on what to look for. Generally speaking, if we have a street where you're forced to share a travel lane with a car, it's uncomfortable for most folks to do that. And if the speed is above 20 miles per hour, then we should start thinking about different types of treatments for those folks. So a lot of local streets right now function as a AAA facility because there's maybe 150 or 200 cars per day. And so the likelihood that you're going to encounter a car on a trip on a lot of our local street network is actually very low, and that increases comfort. When we start to get more cars than that, then we need to start to treat for how those cars behave in those types of shared environments, or we need to start thinking about separation of people on these micromobility options from the people driving cars. again, to increase safety and hopefully get folks to think about their transportation options before they make a trip. A AAA facility is generally safer. Again, that comes from the separation of modes so that we're separating out the conflicts. We don't have everybody moving at the same time. They tend to be more comfortable. It says about 81% of people say that they feel comfortable, like riding on a shared use path or on a protected bikeway. And when we just had standard bike lanes, all we ever really got to was like 6 to 10% of mode share for people on bikes. And that's pretty much all you can get. But with a protected bikeway, the sky's the limit. We can go 20, 30, 40% mode share for micromobility and e-things. And so there's really a lot of capability there, opportunity. It's also very equitable. And so bikeways eliminate stress and are more comfortable to attract underrepresented groups like women, children, seniors, folks either you're too young or too old to drive, folks who don't want to operate a car for a variety of reasons. They need space to operate too. And so we're trying to allocate that within our existing street system. Efficiency, again, people size things for people. It's future ready. There's all sorts of micromobility options that haven't even been invented yet. But when they do get invented, we're providing spaces for them to operate. The life cycle costs for lighter vehicles is lower than for streets where we're operating buses and fire trucks and garbage trucks and things like that. And so the life cycle cost is actually very low for something like a shared use path or a sidewalk or a protected bikeway. And of course, that leads to additional climate resiliency, especially if we are focusing on human powered vehicles. So just real quick, I wanted to talk about the anatomy of our protected bike lane specifically. And we've got a couple of these in town: Alder Street, High Street, 13th Avenue, 8th Avenue we just did. Lincoln Street is coming next year. And then we're going to jump across the river and start talking about Oakway and how to connect that over to I-5. And so we really are trying to build sort of a backbone of all labors and abilities facilities so that once people get to those, they feel comfortable and know if they can get to that, then they can probably get to their destination. But so one of those things is a separate signal head for bikes, and they usually have a little bike in the middle, and we run them on a different phase than we've been running for automobiles. And again, that's the separation that I'm talking about. It's not only physical separation, a space between cars and bikes, but it's also at the intersections where we've got lots of mental load where people have to decide where to turn and if that person's going to go or if that person's going to go. We try to eliminate that by separating out all of those different modes. And so that's why we feature the bicycle signals. In this particular example, and we have these throughout the community as well, when the bike signal goes on, we also illuminate a "do not turn across the bike lane now please" sign. Just to remind folks that that isn't a green light for everybody. That's a green light specifically for these micromobility lanes. Green pavement markings identify conflict zones. So even though we've separated the signals, there's still a space there where potentially conflicts could occur. And so anytime somebody sees green, if you're in a micromobility device or an e-thing, you should aim for the green thing. And if you're driving a car, you should know that there's potentially going to be an e-thing in this green space. And so that consistency allows these networks to be more predictable so that everybody, whether you're driving or walking or biking, you know how the street is supposed to function because you can follow the paint and the signs and the markings. This is an example of the separation. Sometimes we'll use concrete separators, which really provides a sense of comfort because it's hard for most cars to get across that barrier, but we'll also use painted plastic or flexible bollards or a variety of things that look like they might hurt your car if you hit them. And that tends to keep people honest and in the travel lanes that we assign for them. We're still looking for a product standard. And so that's why every time we've built one of these, it's looked a little different because we've had a variety of issues maintaining the stuff that we've put out there because people do tend to hit it. They can also be one-way or two-way design. What we just did on 8th Avenue is an example of directional protected bike lanes. The bike lane goes in the same direction as the traffic. We can also do a two-way facility, and we generally do those on one-way streets. And examples of those include High Street, which is one way, 13th, which is one way, but we can put a two-way bikeway on there. And we can get away with that because there's fewer conflicts with cars because there's only cars moving in one direction. And it's more space efficient to do that because the space that we're allocating for the separation between cars and bikes is only one thing versus when we have them going in both directions, we need two of those. And so we find that the space between the curbs gets very limited and we have an awful lot of things that have to happen in there. And so if we can make the best use of that space, the better off we'll be overall.
We thought we should include a map on here of our protected bike lane facilities so far. We've got these pink ones, which are the actual protected bikeways, as Reed was just talking about. There's also one up here in the north, off of Ayers Road. It's kind of sneaky, but as Reed was saying, all of the paths in our city are also AAA facilities. So everything that's purple on here is also a like comfortable AAA all ages and abilities facility. So when you look at a map like this, Eugene has pretty decent coverage between the purple and the pink, but we, have a lot of plans to keep working on that and building out that all ages and abilities network. So like we said, we've got a Lincoln Boulevard or Lincoln Street project coming and an Oakway project coming, which is Oakway Road right here, and trying to expand into other parts of.
And so anything that's blue on that map can be a pink thing. We just need the space, money, and commitment from the community to be able to do that. And you can see that network would be pretty much everywhere.
So the timing of Danielle asking us to come talk to you all was really good because we just launched our protected bikeway survey a couple weeks ago. And the survey is designed for users of the protected bikeways. So if somebody drives on a street with a protected bikeway or lives on a street with a protected bikeway but doesn't use it, the survey isn't designed for them. It's designed for people who are using the protected bikeways to really understand what is their experience, how are they interacting with the bikeways, does it feel safer for them, are they going through red lights or are they waiting for green lights, trying to understand just how people are using them. So if you have used the bikeways, grabbing the QR code and taking the survey would be great. We also put these signs all over the bikeways, so while you're out and about, you could also scan the QR code at any of the stoplights. So we have about 250 responses to the survey already, which is really awesome, and we're seeing some, I think, not surprising data. Like 90% of respondents so far said they feel safer in protected bikeways versus regular painted bikeways. And we're getting a lot of good data about people using the bike signals properly and if they're using them to make turns and stuff like that. So we're excited to see kind of what the experience is of users, and then it'll inform our work for all of the future protected bikeways that we're building.
So please take that survey. We are looking at how we're doing the signals and everything else. And if you've decided to abandon a protected bikeway for people who don't take 13th anymore because it's too slow, tell us why that is. Because we'd like to make tweaks in not only all ages and abilities, but where everybody can feel comfortable and where we're providing the most efficiency for transportation. So we are going to look at the results and we might make changes based on that. We were talking internally about things that we could do differently to make them more efficient, especially at signalized intersections. We thought before we do that, we should ask people how it's going out there. Anecdotally, I've heard from a lot of folks about what they think about like separate bicycle signals, and we've noticed a lot of compliance or lack of compliance at those. One of the things we ask in the survey is, are you stopping at the red lights? We won't come find you. Just let us know if you're not stopping at the red lights so that we can actually record that number because we know it's a lot of folks. And so we're not getting that safety element if folks aren't using it per the design. So maybe there are other ways that we can design it, and indeed there are. And so we're trying to figure out what the best way is to do this so that folks who want to live car light or car free feel like they have a viable option to do that. And if it means they have to get in that bike facility that they don't want to use, they're not very likely to do that. So we want to make sure that it works for everyone.
And we tried to keep our presentation pretty short today so that we would have an opportunity for discussion and questions. So that's where we're at now, if people want to ask questions.
Yeah, sure, I've got one.
Okay.
So right away comes to mind Amazon Parkway. Where it was just all resurfaced. And yet it's 35 miles an hour and there's, you know, bike lanes along the side, which seems to me really dangerous when I'm driving 35 miles an hour on that parkway. And I was surprised when it was finished and that was what was there. I had a feeling, I thought maybe they were gonna be eliminated because there's paths right nearby, and it just seems so dangerous. And literally on my way here, driving on Amazon Parkway, a person on an e-scooter crossed the entire parkway. Because they didn't go to the corner and go to the light at the dog park, they just went right in front of the car turn. From like coming from Market of Choice, taking a left turn, and they were like this close to running over the guy right in front of me. And I just think that whole thing, I mean, I'm surprised that that is not. I guess I don't really have a question, I'm more just surprised that that was not part of that entire resurfacing project that we spent a bunch of money on.
So we considered on Amazon Parkway, which is just west of the Amazon Path. The Amazon Path is our second most utilized path in the city after the Riverbank Path. And so most folks coming from South Eugene to downtown or the other way are generally on that path, but not everyone. And so the reason we left the bike lanes there are because we heard from folks in the community who wanted to continue to use Amazon Parkway. We buffered those bike lanes, and so instead of just a standard bike lane with an 8-inch stripe, we now have 2 feet of striping. And that makes it protected bike lane ready because that 2 feet gives us enough space to start putting stuff in. Again, stuff that'll hurt somebody's car, and so that'll provide the separation. And we did, quite frankly, we didn't have the budget to do that yet. And the other thing we're still trying to reconcile is maintenance of those skinny little bike lanes, because their sweepers are 8.5 feet wide. And so we have one special sweeper in the whole city, it's very tiny, that can do all of those things. But it's very busy and it doesn't collect a lot of stuff. And so what they've been doing right now is as soon as that thing is full, it's got like 1 cubic yard of storage apparently. They drive it all the way back to Roosevelt Yard and empty it, and then they drive it all the way back out to the protected bike lane again. So we're trying to identify some options where they wouldn't have to do that, or maybe we get some more smaller sweepers. But until we figure that out, that probably won't get protected, but it's ready to be protected.
Is there any plans for reducing the speed limit? I mean, it's just.
That's a tougher match.
Sketchy there.
So we have to go through a process that ODOT then reviews and tells us if the 85th percentile speed is basically being met or not, and if it isn't, then we can lower the speed. So there's some hoops we have to jump through. It's sort of a long process. And ODOT gives us a process to basically take that control from ODOT, but we still have to use their process. And so it can be difficult on these arterial streets with, you know, just long sections to get people to drive a little bit slower. And it can be difficult to traffic calm them too, because our emergency response vehicles are also using them. And so every time we add a bump, we're slowing people down. Sometimes that's good if it's a passenger vehicle, it's bad if it's a fire station or a fire engine. And so on our arterial street like Amazon Parkway, it's particularly challenging to design a street that is gonna have traffic move slower. And we're not sure if we're gonna meet the burden of the metric that we have to reach to lower. It's not just up to us, unfortunately, and that's what a lot of people don't recognize. Now, we were able to do that with local streets. So the street in front of most of your houses is probably 20 miles an hour. And we were able to do that because it's a local street and that's completely within our control. But once you get into like arterial streets or streets that act like highways or run routes or freight routes, then ODOT gets involved again, and it gets hard for us to change the speed limit.
You'd think there would be, since Roosevelt is right there and south, that they are school zones and that might have something to do with it, but apparently not for the speed. No, okay.
Elementaries.
Yeah.
So I had a question about what the effect of the bike lanes is, I just read cap 20 about how, we're trying to reduce gas. and all. Sorry. Is there any quantified analysis of how more protected bike lanes will get people out of their cars, or is it just kind of a let's hope that happens?
No, there's definitely national research. We've talked with folks at the University of Oregon about that to record our experience. And we take counts on a quarterly basis on all of our protected bike lanes. So we're gathering those data right now to figure out if we built it, if they came. We think that they did. And you might see that there's some tube counters out there right now. So we're actively counting right now to figure out what the impact is of those facilities. But the other thing is being ready for whatever comes next. Be they e-scooters or e-bike share, because our fleet is getting old. And then like, where do we expect those folks to ride? And we're trying to develop a system that is ready for folks. And when we survey folks, we say, what would it take for you to not take your car for this trip? They say, I want to feel like I'm on the riverbank path. And without planting a bunch of trees and diverting the river, we're sort of reliant on concrete and plastic and some other things to create that space. And we do hear feedback from families, especially who are traveling to schools, that this has really changed how they take their kids to school. They feel safe enough to use those facilities, and that's what we're hoping for. It's not to get the folks who've been riding for 20 years to use these new routes. It's to get the folks who've been curious for the last 5 years to try it. And then hopefully we've convinced them through comfort, safety, experience that this is a decision worth continuing and that they're going to continue to ride bikes.
Are you measuring traffic decrease at the same time?
We are doing that right now. We actually don't do a lot of traffic counts, far fewer traffic counts than you would think. We mostly do them for development or if we're planning on doing a major change to the street. So, and then plus there's so many routes. It's like, so if people divert from this route, are they on this side street or on this side street? So now we're counting 3 streets. Maybe this street was a better idea because of, anyway, it's sort of endless as to what data means, but we're collecting as much data as we can.
Okay, so Lily, sorry, I couldn't see you before.
Hi, so first of all, thank you for the presentation. I know a lot of my fellow high schoolers and I walk or bike to school, so this is super interesting. So I'm curious, are there plans to create bike routes that specifically connect these key community locations like schools, parks, neighborhoods that are frequently used by all residents and especially youth? And like, how are these connections being prioritized and how are these like routes being decided? So like, where are you putting these bike lanes?
Yeah, got it. So we have a 20-year plan called the Transportation System Plan. And in that plan, it identifies what the future network is going to look like for driving, walking, and biking. And so we show what the future bikeway network is supposed to look like. And we base that on a variety of things, including origins and destinations. So where are people starting their trip? Where are they ending their trip? And how do we make that within the existing grid? And a lot of those destinations are schools, places of business, shopping centers, bus stops, the places where we would expect people to either walk or bike there or use active transportation. So that is, I think, foremost in our evaluation is where are people trying to get to? Is this a public facility? Is this someplace where we need to provide better access? And so we're always looking at those types of destinations and making sure that our plan aligns with that. Our transportation system plan did a pretty good job of doing that, in my opinion. By the way, our TSP, which is what that plan is also called, is going to be updated in the next couple of years. And so I would imagine that it's going to have more protected bike lanes on it than this one did. We've got almost all of the protected bike lanes built from the last TSP, or we're actively working on them. So if we want additional locations identified, it's going to happen in that transportation system plan. But of course, we would like the community to tell us where they'd like to go, where they don't currently go because they don't feel safe riding a bike there. And hopefully create those networks that benefit not only schools and parks, but also transit stops along the way, or maybe there's a coffee shop. We're always trying to leverage the as many destinations as possible with the limited resources that we have. So that's a long way of saying, yes, we think about that, and we're working really hard to try and make sure that they are connected.
Cool.
First of all, I want to compliment you on the protected bike lanes. I use them all the time if I can. But I do have an issue with unprotected bike lanes in that I use the East Bank a lot as well as bike paths off of that. And I live in an area where there's a lot of apartment houses and all, and there are a lot of e-bikers and scooters. And it seems as though they do not regulate their speed to be safe. Because they're in a hurry to get where they need to be. And it scares the heck out of me because I walk my dog on the East Bank. And I've almost gotten hit myself by that. And is there anything that you're thinking about in terms of trying to regulate or segregate the e-bikes with the normal bikes as well as pedestrians?
Yeah, we have a campaign that's called our Path Etiquette campaign. And the idea behind that is education and outreach to folks about how to properly use the paths, especially with electric devices, talking about our speed limit on the paths as well as our suggested speed. So the speed limit on the paths is 20 miles per hour. The suggested speed, if there are other people around, is 12 miles per hour. So trying to get people to adhere to that. We also have a project coming up soon that is a striping plan. We found that putting that yellow line along the path makes a really big difference for people on knowing which side of the path they should be on and providing greater space when they're making passes. So we have a striping plan coming up, where we're gonna be adding striping to certain parts of the path, especially parts where there are intersections or blind corners, to really make sure people stay on their side. As far as enforcement goes, that's not something the city really has budget for, nor is it in our plan to do enforcement. And I think when we look at the data and try to make data informed decisions, the places where residents of Eugene are getting hurt or killed is on the streets from getting hit by cars. And we don't have really any data to support that e-bikes and e-scooters are a significant threat to residents of Eugene. So although we take it seriously and we want to be working on it, as far as protecting residents, it doesn't rank super high compared to other projects that we're working.
We've also talked to bike shops, pardon me, that sell e-bikes and reminded them that in our community and in Oregon, class 1 and class 2 e-bikes, which means they're limited to 20 miles per hour, are what is allowed on the shared use pass system. And if you buy a class 3 e-bike, which goes all the way up to 28, that is actually not currently allowed on the shared use pass system. And we said, please don't sell those to folks, but we can't really tell them what to sell, unfortunately. And so if somebody comes in and wants to buy that new 28 mile per hour go fast bike, they're gonna sell it to them. And I wish that didn't happen that way, but it seems to. I think where that's gonna show up is if we start getting into, or if there's a crash incident that happens and somebody's on a class 3 and somebody is gonna go back and litigate that at some point, they're gonna say, what kind of bike were you riding? What is it? They're gonna have to find out it was a class 3 bike, which isn't even allowed to be there. And then by default, that's their crash. And I don't want it to have to go to that, but we've got the mechanism in place for that to be a tool. In the meantime, we've started putting out signs through our etiquette campaign that tell folks what to do and that this is everybody's path, and please tell folks if you're passing, and that this is what we're expecting you to do in terms of speed. And some folks just simply don't do that. But it's not a new conversation. Before the proliferation of e-bikes, we were getting that from standard bikes. Anytime there's a speed differential, there's discomfort. And I think the fact that folks are legitimately traveling faster now on an e-bike just accentuates that, makes it worse. And we're still trying to figure out what to do about it. I think the center lines are gonna help. And I think there could also be some additional pavement markings that we could do on the paths, just to remind folks to slow down.
Jan?
I also want to thank you for the presentation and the work. I think the separated bikeways are awesome. We live out East Amazon, so I'll come down that every day. It's obvious to me what a big difference that has made. In fact, I see, families more often with younger kids and that almost too much. Sometimes I still think it's a little unsafe because they're wobbling all over the place. It's like, oh my God. But it's good. Obviously, people are using it more. I second your concern, and it was good to hear your answer. I wonder, why are there two speeds? And there does seem like there are a few signs, but not very many really. So for those of us who are walking or riding slower for us to be able to refer to that, or remember it, it would be helpful if there were more, for sure. And I can see how the markings would help more as well.
Yeah, we are planning, part of our striping plan is adding additional signage as well, especially around the speed limit. I think the reasoning behind the two speeds is that 12 miles per hour is quite slow if you're the only one on the path. So if you're out on Alton Baker and there's no one around and you've got an open road, even on a regular bike, 20 miles per hour is very easy to hit and efficient. So that's kind of our messaging, is like, if you're out there by yourself, go 20, like that's still not that fast. You have plenty of time to react to things. Bikes have a really short stopping distance, so they can stop on a dime. But if there are people around, that feels fast, especially when you're walking 2 miles an hour. 20 miles an hour feels really fast, so that's where our recommendation is to slow down if there are others around.
And then the only other thing I want to add was I did a 1-person survey of my husband who bikes more than I do. And he said they're great and it's wonderful. He personally doesn't use them as much as because he likes to get straight to the bike path. Because he can, and that's really the kind of biking he wants to do. So his feedback is following up on Lily's thing. Anything you can keep doing to make connections to the bike system, it seems like that's where a lot of people want to get to.
Right.
That's good.
And I think it gets back a little bit to the comment about the bike lanes on the Amazon Parkway, is that although they're unprotected, we try to maintain redundancy in our system for the different types of bikers. So some people, they just want to get where they're going, they're confident, they don't mind a painted stripe. And we want to maintain that facility for them, like on Pearl, where we repaved it, we kept a striped bike lane, even though there's a protected bike lane now on High Street. So that redundancy, I think, is important for our system as well.
Thank you, Lexi. We have time for a quick one.
Yeah, I'll be quick. One really quick question. How much longer is that survey up?
It's open till November 15th.
Great, thank you. We can help spread the word a little bit.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Second one, just briefly, and maybe it's planting a seed more than asking a question, but I'm curious how you're integrating with some of the other plans. Like, for example, there's a Lane County master bike plan. It would be great to know that our city bikeways connect nicely to what the county is planning, right? So presumably that's on your radar, but I just so we're not all silent. And sort of similarly, there are some resilience hubs being planned, city level, county level, and it seems like it would be important to make sure that if we're investing in a resilience facility, that we've got a really strong connection network through bicycles, which are a very resilient form of transportation. You don't need to fuel them up or charge them up so that people can access those resilience hubs. So I'm just thinking in terms of integration to make sure that planning efforts are not siloed, to at least flag those two things. And I'm sure there are others that are relevant too.
I was on the committee for the Lane County Bicycle Master Plan. All of the things that in the urban fringe that connect. We talked about how those should connect, and so that is in their plan. Can you say more about what a resiliency hub is?
Yeah, resilience hubs. So the county got a grant to invest in several resilience hubs. They're not all in Eugene, of course, but there are facilities being planned in different places around the county and here in town that are basically, think of like the fairgrounds as sort of one already. When the big earthquake hits, EWEB has water facilities at the fairgrounds, and there are several other places. Water, first aid, staging areas for emergency response. So there are shelters. Yeah, exactly. Where would we house people? These are the kinds of places that sometimes, I think last year, some folks from wildfire escapees the last couple of years have come in and been put inside resiliency help places. And there's more work underway to plan out where those are gonna be. I don't remember all the locations, so I'd have to check.
Okay, again, that's a great opportunity for a transportation system plan.
Yeah.
And make sure that they are accommodated with a variety of different transportation modes. So now that I know those exist, we'll make sure to include them.
You said it's county led,
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll poke around a little bit while you're in there.
sounds great.
Ian, do you remember the resilience hubs? 'Cause there's city and county flavors, right?
So I missed.
I was just saying, wouldn't, the city emergency management people are plugged in on that effort, right?
We don't have an emergency management person right now.
Oh.
But so the sustainability program. is
Okay.
plugged into that.
Oh, good.
But yes, so we should touch base on that.
Okay.
But yes, so there are facilities in Eugene, it's one of the better schools, I'm forgetting which one, they're using like public large facilities to ensure these hubs. And the idea for this is both sunny day, so just, when there's not an emergency, just providing services to the community. As well as in response to an ice storm or fire or some type of event as well.
Well, I think on the agenda, you all should have our names, so if anybody wants to ask follow-up questions or reach out to us about anything around transportation, we'd be happy to hear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Alrighty. So one of the things we have to do tonight, because Mitra and I are actually presenting the work plan on Monday to city council. We need to discuss the items about the work plan, and then the action item is to approve the work plan, because we can't present it if we don't approve it. So we're really hoping that it will be approved, since we're on the docket for Monday to do this presentation. So hopefully everyone read through everything again. And we want to discuss, if anyone has anything to say about the committee proposals, Mitra has some things to say about that as well. We're gonna need to assign members to the committees tonight, and if we need to, we can talk about like roles of the committee chairs, if that's something that we might want to go over with some of the new people or some stuff like that. So, do you want to?
Sure.
Start?
So our work in committees has changed a lot over my tenure at the commission, and we're just trying to get more and more productive and succinct. So I know it feels kind of different to have these committees planned ahead of time, and like we haven't gotten into it yet. So this feels a little different, like we're doing a lot of stuff before we used to, but we got a lot of really good feedback last year last session about the products of our committees. So judging from the lens of that, looking into our committees for this year, this work plan, I was hoping to get we were hoping to get a little bit of clarity on the landscaping committee. Oh, thank you. Yeah, climate friendly landscaping. So we see definitely a lot of value in this, but we were wondering, could have some discussion around whether we're focusing in this committee or what your passions are. There's a lot of interest and passions in this over producing something like suggestions for the city for public landscaping practices compared to other areas, which might look like in terms of the committee, looking at our present practices at the city and then other communities, and then juxtaposing those and coming up away with suggestions, or potentially a list of best practices or combined resources that already exist for private landscaping practices, which might look like collating like already existing resources like master gardeners resources and other groups that have produced similar lists, and offering these up at maybe like our public engagements. That could be a really great product. So we are just wondering, we thought we'd just open the discussion with that, like whether there's one of those particular directions that was being, more interest from the participants of that committee. Sorry if I was stumbling.
I mean, my preference would be to keep it pretty vague and open in the work plan and let the committee talk about that, because, you know, these whole groups are really not a suitable, like, real discussion. But as long as we make sure we get everything into there that's gonna match up. Because I have my ideas, but we never, and then there was like 5 people that had their ideas, and I don't think we can have that in-depth discussion in this whole commission meeting. So I would like to keep it, you know, just specific but flexible, so the people interested in it could sit down and talk and flesh it out more. I mean, when I first sent it to Ian, I put everything I heard, which was too much, so I kind of already cut it back. Because of just infeasibility of doing every single thing that got thrown around in that the session we had. So that's just my take, but there were several other people that put their hands up.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure, excuse me. If I understood exactly what you were asking for.
Okay, sorry. So we were in our preparation for presenting these committees to the city council. We were trying to get clarity and feel really like anticipate questions that might come at us about like what we're gonna produce, what direction we're going, what the committee is about. So this one seems like I was just wondering, we had discussed like both public and private. I didn't know if there was a passion or direction, like, yeah, we really want to take up a lot of these issues that have come up about the public landscaping practices, which could define a really different direction the committee would take, like looking at what the city's already doing, and then looking at what other communities are doing, researching that, and then putting together what are we missing here and putting together best practices. That seems to me, from my experience based on last year and what we did with food waste reduction, like a whole committee job there. Versus a different one might look like producing something for individual private landowners, which would look like. Anyway, it just seemed kind of broad, and I'm not saying it has to necessarily, but we were hoping to get more clarity about if there was a direction within that range that folks that were interested in that committee might be leaning towards more than sorry.
Well, I was just saying that I guess I would agree with Laura that I don't think the members of the committee haven't even talked yet, so it's hard to know what everybody's got in mind. And it seems like there's enough information here that I don't think the council's gonna get into a lot of super detailed, so usually at this level, in case they're not. I mean, it seems like they're talking about artificial turf and gas powered floors, possible topics.
So those almost sound more maybe like public. Just because most,
Probably, I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's one place to start, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, again, my personal thinking, but it'd be really nice to have a conversation amongst the people who've expressed interest in it.
Yeah.
We haven't had a chance. to do
we're
that.
not trying to put anyone on the spot, we're just trying to feel like more prepared about like what the work would look like in this committee, what the product would be. So what happened last year with the food waste prevention is we were looking at both multi-family buildings and individual, like single family houses and how they use our food waste existing infrastructure. And our first meeting included a presentation from the city, and they basically said it's redundant to look into multi-use. Like, we're curious, but they had already done a lot of work on that. And
But that didn't happen until your first meeting. so-
right. And so, yeah, I was just,
Yeah.
that's true, yeah. So I guess looking into what is already existing with the city, if you are looking at city suggestions, might be a good step. Just because it would have changed the direction entirely. We would have spent the whole entire committee doing something that was absolutely pointless because it had already been done. So I guess, is there any clarification of wording, or I guess knowing that if you're interested in taking that path in that committee, about at least looking into what's already happening to know that we're not wasting, that we're doing.
Counselor Sensible has, oh, sorry.
Thank you. This is a really important topic on many ways. It's a subject that council world is interacting with in many different levels. In more climate friendly areas, they're going to need landscape too. One of the things that concerns me a little bit, depending on the findings and their relevance for Eugene, the committee may share recommendations to the council. I want to know what you found out, and I hope it will be relevant to Eugene and that the committee won't do a lot of work that then is interesting, but not helping council, because remember, we've got to get the CRO done. So we want to keep following with that. And as far as the public and the private, of course, I want to do both, but I also know you've got 5 meetings. I also like to do things that can realistically happen. And we have a lot more control over what we do in public situations about, I think we've done a lot of work towards moving towards electric retailers. Probably privately, that's going to be a nightmare because of all the landscape businesses. So, I don't really need you to go searching, someone taking it away from the landscapers. So, I'd rather have sweet dreams. How can you help me out with that? I am not squelching any of these ideas or any of this enthusiasm. But it's also like, if you find out what other cities are doing in the area that we're looking at what we should do, you can actually help staff save some time if you're doing some research. And definitely, as you're discussing what you do want to do, and I've said this in my entire community sustainability, because I've watched the communities come up with these great ideas and all this research they're going to do for this idea. And I'm like, whoa, wait, talk to staff. They've done all of that, get that information, and then start there with what the recommendations and ideas are. So just be careful that you're not doing something that's been done. Keep in mind that you could be benefiting us with doing staff work, helping us with more information. So that's input from me.
And I want to echo that like in this line of questioning, we're not in any way suggesting this isn't really important, like this is very high value. But maybe if it was something that was a lot to handle in the 5 meetings for one, we could reserve like next year for another. Like, I know this was a topic that came up that wasn't originally brought up, and that's not, it's very important, all of this, and I echo that. So it's just more of the sake of simplicity and keeping our work, manageable and the product clear, I guess, is that why I'm inquiring about this.
I have a question for Council Semple. So, I did this draft and I didn't see the email in time. So it was a little last minute. Because we haven't ever met, that's, this is
And
the
I'm
issue.
understanding that they're working in the
So
dark here.
do you consider, in the past, we've given informational things to council, which is different than giving a recommendation. So that's where I was trying to keep it open. Like, it might just be informational, which you said is valuable, or it might be, maybe we discover like, oh, this is timely, it's relevant, it fits into here, it'll work. And so then we recommend something, but is there a way to make it feel like
I think,
maybe clear that
both
it's what
of those things are good. If I wouldn't start out as my goal to give a recommendation to council.
So just
Start out my goal to find out this information. We're always wanting to get stuff that other cities have already done and save us some time. And of course, I want you to keep thinking while you're getting this information. And because you'll be first on the line there, you will be in a good place to see how it lines up and what might be more successful. with the city. And, you know, going into also the outreach education, separate committee, but a similar goal. To get information to others.
So just take out the mention of recommendation, and if we find out there is a great thing we can do.
Yeah, I think that might be okay, wouldn't get counsel like, what do you mean, you can tell us what to do? Yes. But definitely have it in reserve, I do not want you to keep a recommendation.
So can we make that amendment? in
If
the-
other people, you know.
Yeah, we probably want to, right? Because we're gonna be presenting.
Yeah, we gotta kind of make it happen tonight.
Yeah, we're planning that.
Yeah, just take out the reference to recommendation and keep it as informational.
Create an informational document, is that what you mean?
Yeah.
An informational document describing strategies?
Well,
So instead of potentially this.
that or something different.
Create an informational document
Provide information on strategies that seem like a good fit. I don't know that studies, please.
so to delete the depending on funding.
Sure.
And I think this is where I was getting hung up. Am I missing something?
Delete the
Depending.
depending on the
Oh,
funding.
sorry. And I was looking at that. And when you say a good fit for Eugene, I think this is where I was getting hung up as staff on this. Are you thinking city operations or I think that's where like that felt like it was becoming very broad. And I think to Mitra's point, we're trying to figure out like, was there a specific understanding we haven't met yet?
Maybe
But I think I was
the
thinking
public
about,
or
yeah,
private.
no, I get that. I think in thinking about like, if we're fielding questions, I wouldn't necessarily have a good sense of what this committee might be looking at if I was fielding a question from council right now.
Well, I don't either, because we never got to talk,
Sure.
but I just think, I mean, there's.
No, I get it. And like, part of this-
Illegal, like we would recommend something that's
Sure.
illegal to do in Oregon, so it works great in California, you know, that's what
Yeah.
in my mind, I was thinking, like, things that actually are viable. So maybe
Got
if that was like triggering confusion, just take it out.
But I think that that could fit for both public and private, because Eugene has its aura, it's five. And what we do on public land is gonna have to match up with what the people who live here want. So, I think you could keep that sort of use right now as to, you know, just be thinking, what sort of strategies would be desirable, exciting, acceptable in Eugene. But
I'm calling myself, so the one thing that I would like to be sure is in there, and it may be above the. I'm not sure, there's one thing that, is to find out, be sure that you're finding out what actually is happening. I mean, in, like, first and foremost, it's hard to miss. Yeah, I think there was a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Park staff, okay, because that, I think that's gonna really be a driver for what you guys focus on, which was similar to like what Mitra was saying with the waste.
Would you accept saying that city staff, because there's facility staff as well, who are also in this space? Parks is the bulk of the
Relevant
city.
city staff,
Well, let's see staff.
and then you could put that one on top if that seems important as a first step.
Yeah, I think that would, I think, really help clarify instead of just jumping in and doing something.
Yeah, those were not in the order, I mean,
Oh,
they're not like how, I just.
up under intended delivery, we have strategies that seem. One of strategies that seem.
That's
Like
just.
very redundant.
Seem to be. Or could be.
It just was the plural and the singular that was.
Yeah.
Stumbling me, that's all.
There's also one that's to delete
Correct.
up top.
That would be a good fit, that could be a good fit, sure. Okay.
Thank you all for this, and I hope we don't feel like you
What
have
am I
to
missing?
produce.
On the bottom where we were, we should
Without
move
having
the
met. to
talk to
purchase.
staff first,
Wanna feel-
put that at the top of that list.
Oh, okay.
And then at the very top, there's one sentence to delete the recommendations, like the parenthetical
sentence.
Want to just,
Uh,
Make sure.
That whole, yeah.
do you want to just get rid of that whole thing?
Yeah.
If I please.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was great.
I think this is a great round.
I was glad to see the agenda.
And I also, you know, I'm like, I'm gonna be hard, it doesn't mean I don't want. Right, so thank you for the.
No, and we recognize that like this is a new process in terms of getting all of this approved as part of the work plan. It's kind of,
Right, it's,
we're just into the reality of kind of what we have to do is. With that,
I liked it, because the work plans used to come in from multiple places, just kind of vague, you know? Yeah, we're gonna talk about trees and water, you know, it's like, okay. And so we didn't really know what would come back, and especially like we thought the sustainability commission often had non-committees. So how much of that could actually come? So I think this is very clear, I think it's doable, and I think that council will actually be paying more attention, being more receptive because of that.
Jan, did you? or-
Just to say, and it's good to try to streamline the process because we don't have a lot of time. We get our committees going faster, that's a good thing, we have more time to. Yeah.
Thanks. All right, so we kind of need to, that was great. I really appreciate all of that for sure. But we need to assign members to the committees and committee chairs. So I think there was some discussion of that at the retreat. So I need to know who wants to be on what committee and who wants to chair. So you want to just go in order or do chairs first? Back up what I just said before. Oh, sorry, or Ian can put up there. This is the list of the committees. It's
Oh.
like on one of the other.
Oh, for the agenda?
No, it's like,
it's in the work plan.
yeah.
For the work, I think, of course.
I'm just looking for it. Is it right there? There. There it is. All right, so for the Education and Outreach Committee, Dennis, he's not here, but he expressed interest in continuing to be the chair for that committee, and so who is interested in being on that committee? It's a good one.
Somebody, I'm reading stuff.
That's a lot of hands. Do we have a public records trigger? Because if
We need-
we reach a certain number of people on
We
the
need less than
committee,
quorum, so we need less than 7.
you want to be less than quorum,
So
then
we've
we have
got
to notify every meeting.
5, 6.
That it becomes 6%.
Lily,
Is that
that's
good,
kind of
Lily?
too.
Oh, Lily.
We have 7.
Oh, so 7 is too many or
We
7?
can't have quorum, otherwise
can
we
step
run into
off.
different public meeting.
Why
requirements.
don't I step off? Because,
Okay,
yeah, I can step off so Lily can step on. I think that's a good idea.
Your chair, you'll have enough to do.
I think so. Yeah. Pick me. Thank you, Lily.
so Dennis, Misha, John, Tom, Lily, Jim. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Makes sense. And I'll just check in and find out what's going on. Yeah. Right, and then, the Clean and Reliable Backup Energy Systems Committee, Lexi Chair.
Yes, please.
You can take me off the other one too. I'll be-
Oh. Okay,
Yeah. I have to be realistic.
so that one.
Who wants to be
I
on
could be
that?
on that one. Okay. Unless there's too many of us.
Nope, it looks like 5.
Looks like that fits.
Okay, all right.
Jane and more, okay.
And then, Climate Friendly Landscaping Committee Chair, Laura,
We talked about me and John doing it.
like the co-chairs.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
And then who would like to be on that committee?
There's also people that aren't here tonight that
Yeah.
might want to be on committees, yeah.
And I think I think there's a 3-person minimum, right? So we already have 3, so we're.
We have 4 right now.
Oh, you are great.
We can fill that in later if and when others express their desire, so,
And we'll fill out 2 vacancies.
and fill vacancies, yeah.
Right.
Excuse me, so just really briefly, because we have some new people, I just wanted to talk about like roles of committee chairs. So, or co-chairs, as the case may be. So when you're a chair, you're expected to communicate with staff about meeting scheduling. Because staff, you may or may not know this, but the staff organize, like Danielle organizes the meetings, sets them up, whether they're virtual or in person or however you want to do that. She attends the meetings. So she has a schedule that pretty much ends at 4 o'clock on a weekday. So meetings need to sort of, well, they need to fall within her schedule. In addition to everyone else's schedule.
And just to note, I will be staffing the climate friendly landscape,
Okay.
but I
So
think
that's
using the similar timeframe is helpful.
right. So that's just something to keep in mind. I think it worked really well last year when meetings were, because of Daniel's schedule and Ian's schedule, where we set up when the 5 meetings were in the beginning, so the chair can do that, try to get them on the calendar at the specific times right away. That isn't always possible, but when it is possible, it really makes things run a lot more smoothly for staff to sort of have that on their calendars. Another thing, I guess the chair is kind of responsible for delegating within the committee, making sure that, I mean, someone's taking notes. That's a good idea, right? Or maybe everyone is, just these kind of very basic sort of chair responsibilities. And sometimes you'll be the contact person with staff for the entire committee. For example, like this last time, Dennis, as the chair of the education committee, was the one that like collected all the data from the events that were attended and gathered all the information from different people that participated in the events for survey data and all these different things, and he generated a summary. I'm not saying that the chair has to do that, but the chair needs to make sure that if there's something like that, that someone is doing it and wants to do it. So there's some sort of record keeping or organization of the committee's information is happening. So that's kind of all I have. Do you have anything to add?
No, I just think about scheduling, staff have to notice meetings a week ahead, so she's thinking ahead through, just, we have to do public notice, because these are public meetings every 4 weeks, so just.
Which is another reason to just, try to hammer out your meetings calendar at your first meeting, if that's at all
Done
possible.
this before, and Alexi got baptism last year on this, so.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
right.
meetings are recorded?
Yep,
Committee
the
meetings.
recorded, we also.
Remind-
minutes of it, yep.
Yeah, they're public meetings. So, does anyone have any questions about roles of chairs or committees or anything like that before we move on?
Staff takes a minute.
Yeah, we usually just post the recording, and that meets Oregon program, so, gotcha, yeah.
Right, yeah.
Okay, perfect.
So you don't have to, but, great, thank you. All right, okay, the next thing is the big exciting, action item, so. It's essentially, we reviewed, the 2025 work plan, in this discussion and at the retreat, and then in the time from then to now, hopefully you've had a chance to read it more thoroughly, so.
Before we
Really,
do that, can we change this sentence? Change to the one summary.
sure,
Yeah, I would say, and create a research document and create an informational document, depending, an informational document doesn't depend on anything, it's just. There's a research and an informational document, right?
We'll just get rid of this dependent clause. Add to this. We want to keep the conflict piece in there still.
Pick out the depending on the outcome of the research, because that is.
Yeah, some grammar, sort of, but yes.
Oh,
Sorry.
do it, do it.
Open.
It's usually me, I like you doing it, it's good.
I noticed some things in my committee proposal, I'm not getting. That changes.
Everybody needs.
I
to
noticed
look
them
at it,
too.
Right?
Yeah, I wrote it, I'm not good. at
Hmm.
that. Not in this.
Like that.
No.
Other comments? Bueller, going.
Great, thank you, I appreciate it. Okay.
All right, so we need a motion to.
Any other issues that you've
Oh.
had with the work plan? Actually speaking. Take care of the meeting too. Comments, feedback, anything else? No. Chair Devon, back to you.
I move approval of the work plan.
Second that.
All in favor? Wait, yay, okay,
Hey, ooh.
Right.
thank you guys, that was
Work to do.
relatively painless. And then honestly, just moving right into the next thing, is kind of a similar but different, which is, the review and approve, the summary of engagement from last year. So. That was, if you're new, you know, you could look at it, I mean, that's fine. But we've gone over it and, we looked at it before as well, and you guys have had it, so hopefully. We changed the one, well, that was not it, but
I just wasn't clear about the last sentence.
let me,
What that meant.
very last sentence.
This most likely, hope
Concerted review individuals.
Yeah,
rather than concerted committee.
you individuals in the community. I don't know if that, what that means exactly, or if it's helpful there in any way.
Oh, here it is.
Where's that? And there is a committee on it,
Yeah,
so is that?
yeah, it just didn't make sense.
Oh, yeah, we were going back and forth about that at the.
That just reads to me like Dennis saying. Sometimes I might just talk to people as opposed to through the whole thing.
That's how I interpret it as well, but yeah, I was really sure.
So
So should we?
it
Can we just
doesn't,
take
Strike
it out?
that?
really need to be there.
Yeah, I think we just take it out, I don't know if it's relevant
That's
to
an
the,
internal.
yeah,
fine.
I agree,
Yeah, okay.
I agree.
I said, I really like this document. I think there's a lot of impressive stuff that went on through this committee last year. I think this is actually going to be really helpful. I'm really looking forward to kind of having this presented to council next week, because I think this is like stuff that's going to be really interesting to like share with them. What has been learned through doing these events.
And I think that what we did was a somewhat rudimentary start, so I think can easily, build on that and do better this year. So that's great.
Lily, did you have something or no? Oh, I'm sorry, Councilman Simple.
Thank you. When I first read this, I'm so impressed. I just think this is so great. Even just the list of the picnics you went to. I know it's not that many, but it's much. And that's some dedication. I think council is gonna be really impressed with how much you did, what you covered, and the information for us about what people are concerned about and the trends of what people are thinking. So I say congratulations, this is a very good document. And of course, we'll need to speak to it, being liaison, and that will be a pleasure.
Jan?
And even though he's not here, thanks to Dennis for
Yes.
Sure.
his leadership that
Absolutely.
he got in work on the summer.
And he kind of got thrown right into it too, so that was good. All right. Action item, does anyone want to make a motion?
I move we approve this awesome document.
Second.
Yeah, all in favor? All right, excellent. Thank you, guys. All right, so we are moving right along to council staff and commissioner updates.
I'm ready.
You ready?
For just a little bit left of the year, we have a lot of stuff coming up. Next time will be my last meeting in 7 years of being commissioner. I'm honored. So today we talked about trees, pretty much in depth, and the agenda supplementary material has the whole draft of the urban forestry plan, which will probably be finally approved in April for, Arbor Day, Earth Day. And it's thick, so have some fun with it. The new picture, it's a draft. So there's also lots of white space, not too bad. So that's really fascinating. We all know trees, so that's great. Then of course, we are the stars, next week it's the sustainability that we just approved. And then on the 23rd, we're coming back to that multi, the downtown, and see where it goes. We could take action, we could do whatever. And then, we have the end of the month, beginning of the month, and the Veterans Day. So the 13th, Wednesday, will come to the climate friendly areas selection. So that'll be interesting. I think it's pretty easy. You just see like a clumps of shopping on it. But that's definitely a sustainability issue. On December 9th, we're having an update on the cards over in Naco. And on the 11th, we'll be having a work session on revenue options for climate and sustainability. So I think that's a pretty exciting next 2 months for sustainability and council.
Pretty great. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, staff, you know that.
Council Semple stole all my thunder.
All right.
She covered everything.
Usually it's the other way around. I'm like, please help me.
But for those, chairman and vice chair, Grohl will be presenting on Monday as part of the, getting the work plan approved. It's the second half of the work session, so it's the 5:30 work session, and we will probably go on around 6:15-ish.
That's the first one.
I don't remember. Auditor maybe, or something related to that. But we are second in the
Yeah,
second.
you
queue for
have
that.
to take the first people don't, go on.
Yeah, so you might want to, if you're gonna watch live, you might want to tune in at 6, but we are second in the queue.
Yeah,
to go back
because
to-
today the trees went longer and police commission was.
And remind me to talk about that after real quick.
Okay.
Do any commissioners have any updates? That's my big one.
The only thing I was gonna bring up was the monkey, and so we've already discussed.
All right. Well, great. So one thing that we do, that we started doing last year is generating some questions. You don't have to, but, before we have the presentation that we're going to have next month, which is the, it's developing the Golden Garden, Park Master Plan, yeah, from staff, yeah. So, if you have any questions, I mean, now you could present them, but also it's easier in some ways for staff. If you think of them, you email them. When do you need them emailed by?
I think, probably 10 days before the next session will be helpful. By that point, and we can get them in front of staff and they can think about how they would integrate them into their presentation or plans.
Right, that's what's great, is they're just not for us, they're shared, with the presenters.
And I
And
think it's
that
really
can,
helpful for us to think about how to speak to kind of what your questions and concerns would be as we're presenting.
yeah, it was, I felt like it was a very successful thing to do last year, and it really tightened things up a little bit about, how we're thinking about what the presentation is gonna be, ahead of time. So,
So any questions now, great, and if we want to send them to Danielle and I, as you think of them, that'd be great as well.
yeah. And can Danielle maybe send a reminder, like?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Nobody has any questions? Well, that's all I got. Oh, wait, here's
We have an
the
announcement. Tonight is one of those great big full moons. It comes closer to the earth. It's the hunter moon. It's supposed to be the best of the 3 this year. And so when you read, see if we can see.
The comments out there too.
Right, the comment
To the north?
is-
Is that right? Is the comment north? It's west.
What comment is it?
I forgot his name, it's really complicated.
Okay, I keep seeing.
Only comes every 80,000 years.
Yeah.
Touch it now.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. I'm gonna adjourn the meeting and nobody got up this time, but Ian brought, was that
If he
snacks, they're just hiding
I
over
didn't
there.
see them, I was like, I wanted to go first.
Please take some there, it's a full box.
Yes. Thanks, Ian. We always.
Like,
appreciate it.
oh, it's the library.
Everybody, bye, Lily.
Bye, Lily. Bye.
Bye.